All right, welcome everybody to the second edition of the Enterprise One Tech Task Force for July. We've got a performance session on tap for you today, but before we get started, AJ just ran in my office with a quick announcement about BlueStack, so we're going to give him a few minutes to run over that. So, AJ?
Great, thanks Clayton, and thanks Chris for letting me slip in here for a commercial announcement. Hi all, you probably, I hope by now you're aware of our strategy with JD Edwards Enterprise One Technology Foundation licensing package. Sometimes it goes by the nickname BlueStack. Back in 2010, we announced that we're withdrawing that from a product standpoint, meaning that Oracle would no longer be selling and eventually providing product technical support for the IBM products. It does not affect our certification roadmap. Certainly customers can still use these IBM products as part of their platform choice. So JD Edwards maintains an open platform choice. But we've been sort of on a long, gentle downswing from 2010 up till now. And we have a major date that's pending. That's September 30th, 2016, coming up right around the corner. And the significance of that date is that's the date where Oracle will no longer provide downloads for updates and new versions of the IBM products that are in Technology Foundation. That includes DB2 for Linux, Unix, and Windows. It includes WebSphere Application Server and WebSphere Portal. So many of you have gone to the Update Center so far and downloaded updates to these IBM products, and you can continue to do so. But on September 30th, you can expect that Update Center downloads for the IBM products to go away. That brings us to an interesting platform certification fork. As many of you know, if you're watching, the next version of IBM WebSphere Application Server, version 9, has recently come out. And true to our form, yes, we do intend to certify WAS 9 as an application server for JD Edwards, right? We're holding true, and so that'll be part of our certification roadmap. But timing-wise, we're just not quite able to get that certification done by the time the September 30th rolls around. So what we've done is we have posted the WebSphere version 9 out on the Update Center, and we would encourage partners and customers who have technical support rights to Technology Foundation to go ahead and download that, so they still have those rights through September 30th. Go ahead and download WAS 9, and meanwhile, be on the lookout for our normal platform certification announcement that WAS 9 is in fact a certified web application server. That's likely to happen after September 30th, but at least you'll be able to download the bits for WAS 9. So hopefully that's clear. If it's not, I've left you with these Oracle support documents that explain it in full. Please pass the word around to your peers and your customers about that September 30th date. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. Thanks.
That's it.
That's it.
Thanks, AJ, for the breaking news. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled program now. Mr. Papineau, go ahead and share your screen again. And
okay, we up now?
Yep, you're great. Thank you.
Good. I pushed the right button, so my practice by walking and chewing gum at the same time worked. I can make one of these things go smoothly on Zoom. So thanks, Clayton. Thanks, AJ, for that. Red state, blue state, or red stack, blue stack. It is an election year in the U.S. That's immediately what came to mind. I'm Chris Papineau, software architect in the area of performance for Oracle here in Denver. I always like to say that in the past 21 years now, I've worked for 3 companies with the same phone extension. JD Edwards and PeopleSoft and Oracle and whatnot. And so today, the session we'll give you is another installment of Tales from the Performance World, which will include a case study and just another little platform-specific trick. Kind of the performance will be, or the session will be more or less in 2 parts today. Let's see if I can get a slide to go with the one in the watch. That makes our attorneys happy there, saying that this isn't contractually bound or forward-looking or anything like that. So, again, past We've done Tales from the Performance Lab, the Performance Queue, and this is the Performance World. I don't know how many of you saw Jurassic World last year. Like last time, if you saw last session, the generally applicable lessons are going to be marked with that little takeaway icon there too. And then we'll also review in the end what were all the takeaways. Also, the Performance Library, there's the doc ID for that. If you go to My Oracle Support, there are cataloged, hopefully in a fairly user-friendly way, several dozen past performance presentations, sessions, documents, things of that nature, that pertain to things in here and everything else. So the agenda for today is, first, we have a customer case. I call it Access iNodes Extreme, okay? And if you notice it, maybe to give you a little clue on what this is about, it does form a little acronym there. 3 letters, of course. We've got to pay homage to, our friends in the government, 3-letter acronyms. Second session will be session on the performance tips, that being tracking tools we can look at. But so, Access iNodes Extreme. Well, this is something I was going to give you some different material this week, but a issue came up recently that I thought was of interest. I thought I'd put that together in the details of that. And I think Clayton you were familiar with this one yourself. You were involved with, getting this one resolved and escalated. So this is a customer case. What is the problem definition? Well, the customer was running on IBM AIX, okay, like the title suggests. They were upgrading from our 9133 version to our 9203 version. And what they said to us is that we're now live on Tools 9203 for 2 days, and we're seeing a dramatic change in UBE performance across the board, okay? Normally, that's one of the cardinal sins when you are reporting a problem. When a customer reports a problem, enters a bug, and they say across the board, that's a great way to get me to run it in the other direction, okay? Normally, you don't have those words in a problem definition. They are what we call weasel words, okay? Well, everything is slow, That's like going to the doctor and saying, geez, I'm always sick, okay? That tells me a lot. And you notice back in the slide here that was the entrance slide, that it has earned a place of honor right there in terms of everything is slow across the board. What did I say about problem definition? Don't get them started on that. Like I say, don't get me started on problem definition, okay? Well, normally that's bad. However, okay, customer, like in Dumb and Dumber, has redeemed himself by the fact that that one hot button weasel word was accompanied by a much more specific and detailed problem definition, okay? They gave precise facts and numbers. They gave specific examples. For examples, they said, okay, this is a tools only upgrade. These are quotes directly from what they entered into the bug system, okay? Parallel MRP went from 20 minutes to 2 hours. The General Ledger Integrity Report went from 1.5 hours to 10 hours, okay? And they cited other examples as well, okay? The point is that they're giving specific jobs with specific before and after times, okay? Instead of just saying, well, everything is slow, and then expecting that we'll, break out the chicken bone and both read their mind and their system and everything else. No, they had skin in this game. They went and told us exactly what's going wrong and what part of the systems were going wrong. They also said, an important material fact, that there was a dramatic rise in CPU being used, okay? So what we have here is what's called a baseline comparison performance problem, meaning a degradation of existing code following an upgrade or change to the system. Now, I contrast that to what I call an intrinsic opportunity performance problem. What that is that they've got some newly installed piece of software, maybe something they haven't ever run before, so there's nothing to compare it to say that it's slow, except their business requirement. Well, this runs in 10 hours. Our business requirement demands that it run in 2, okay? So in that case, it's not a case you were meeting a certain goal before and now you're not. It's the case, okay, this out of the box doesn't meet the goals. So oftentimes, you've got to crack into things a little bit more and maybe go in and look at, okay, how does this thing actually work and where is it spending its time and whatnot. We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with something that worked before and all we changed is tools, okay? So theoretically, it should be a less invasive, type of a fix here, right? So remember, with problem definition, it's so important to do that up front. Again, it tends to be a problem with performance issues, particularly. If it's a functional issue, right? I don't know, but my experience is customers tend to be specific. They tend to say, I push the OK button and, they're off by 3 decimal points calculating this tax, right? Or this doesn't display properly. It cuts off the last 2 lines of, the product description in the sales catalog or, whatever. I'm making this stuff up. But again, as opposed to performance, it runs slow. Okay, well, again, I can't solve a problem I can't define, and I can't improve something I can't measure. Okay, important aspects, problem definition. And Yogi said it well played, for those of you not in the U.S., he was an American baseball player who was known for a lot of clever little quotes that were kind of humorous in their self-contradiction. He says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. Okay, it seems to be a contradictory statement, but you know what he's trying to say, okay? So what changes are made prior to the problem? Again, an in-place tools upgrade from 9133. Didn't change any hardware, didn't change their AIX level, didn't change their OS, in other words. On the enterprise server, they did change a database client driver from 12.1 Java 1.6 to 1.7, the C compiler. So they listed everything they changed, everything that could possibly be a factor here, okay? They also said, well, prior to the upgrade, I would have always said the bottleneck was the database, but now it looks like the enterprise server. That indicates that the customer is paying attention to their system, and is, system aware, if you will, that they're aware of what profiles look like when they monitor the system, okay? So, again, that's a customer that is willing to work with us. There's also a clear statement of the goals, so we have a clear exit strategy, okay? We need help understanding which of these changes is contributing to the slow-running UBEs. They didn't say, it's this, fix this piece of code. It's not like we've ever had anybody say that to us before, right? What they're saying is, here are the symptoms, here are the changes, here's what we think is going on, help us understand it so that we can fix it. Okay? Once again, they've already done baseline timings, which we're going to take to be accurate for the time being. Again, the upgrade is done in place. So the prior install, the 9133, is not available anymore. And the upgrade to 9.2, those of you that have gone through it so far, compared to other tools upgrade, is a bit invasive. There's a lot of manual hand paddling type of steps. So to ask the customer to back out that tools upgrade as a test isn't something I'd normally ask right up front for them to do, okay? But again, stay tuned for later on in the program, so to speak. Now, the first thing that happened is what's common, with these type of things is that the person helping them will try to do what I call carpet bombing the problem. You just toss a bunch of solutions over the wall and hope one of them works, but without cause and effect reasons to do so, okay? I say don't do that, but if you do, so to speak, here's the 2 rules. You don't spend more than a day, maybe 2, doing it. Number 2, don't do it if it's high risk and irreversible. Okay, so if there's maybe some low-hanging fruit items you can change, that aren't based on a direct cause and effect analysis, it may be worthwhile. You can hit on something, but you do it and extends for days. Number 1, it kind of damages your credibility, and also it makes it look like you're trying to delay the problem. You're trying to filibuster things. Hopefully the problem will just go away, or they'll stop complaining about it, or whatnot. It gives that appearance that you're just kind of throwing things over the wall. Like they were saying, oh, indexes, rebuild indexes, even though the customer said that there doesn't look like there's database involvement, right? So how is building indexes going to affect things? Well, Sure, the database client matches. Might have something to do with that. They, did say they changed the database. Elite Global Table Specs. How often was that? Those of you that have worked with JD Edwards a number of years, any problem, delete Global Table Specs, right? They'll fix it. It's something that rather than delete them, maybe what you could do is create a temporary directory and move them there, okay? And then so that they'll be regenerated. Again, that's a non-destructive way of doing that. Delete runtime cache contents, et cetera, Again, these are all a bunch of things that are relatively low risk and maybe don't take so long, but they're just not really based on the analysis, right? It's just reading off of a script. We don't want to do that too long. You don't want to get bogged down in that. And the customer, again, gave a pretty good piece of deductive reasoning, on, why I think some of these steps were kind of off the mark. That, they say the database isn't a big issue. We're not seeing inefficient queries. Again, that's something that would tend to point you away from database-related solutions, which means that their database patch to 12.01, whatever it was, doesn't look like a high suspect issue. If it's not database, query execution time, that's a factor. Also, graph of 24 hours of database activity. Again, they're not just getting one data point here and there. They're monitoring, the database, and nothing is standing out in the graph. That's concerned me is the inefficiency of such and such, a UBE, which they know doesn't access the database much, okay? So, again, having that complete less than 2 hours lets the database off the hook completely. Again, this is a knowledgeable, independent customer. That's not something you can control. You can't say, poof, become knowledgeable. But again, it makes these issues solvable a whole lot more easily when you get one that really feels like they're working with you on the issue, which is what, we got here. So, again, profiling, okay? You got to crack under the hood. You got to find out where the code is spending its time ultimately through one of a number of different means, through hopefully, the least invasive means you can get. Well, one way of doing that is collecting debug logs, or at least logs from part of a run. Okay, the logs contain information with timestamps that can be used to create a profile. Again, getting ahead of ourselves through the Performance Workbench tool. Okay. Now, what I had, the one thing they didn't do exactly the way I would have done it is they collected very small sample sizes, 20 to 30 seconds, okay? Now, normally, that's too small to conclude anything about jobs that run for hours, okay? It's not a sample size that you would want to project out, to a several-hour running UBE, okay? And again, tortoise in the air, the joke is 19 additional trials, the results are shown to be anomalous, right? That's, 20 to 30 seconds, do anything with that. But again, it doesn't hurt to go and take a look at those logs they collected, and just see if there's anything that does jump out at us, okay? In other words, know when to break the rules, okay? It doesn't do any harm to take these logs and just see if they lead anywhere rather than saying, well, let's grab a log that takes 20 minutes worth, for example. Okay, normally that's what I'd say. What's going on with the logs? Well, the old 9133 system is gone. What the customer's been doing is running the UBE on a 9.2 PC class Windows machine as a comparison to their slow, AIS server. There's a little Freudian slip. AIS is something else, that has been relevant to the Oracle world lately, but it's not AIX. So I'll have to speak to my secretary and my proofreader and maybe, make them stay after school for that. Anyway, there should be slow AIX server. So the best UBEs run faster on the PC than on the AIX server. So what you can be inferred is that the problem may be specific to AIX in 9.2, okay? Now, the log segment they gave us has almost no database I/O in it, okay? So we know database isn't going to be a factor in this. It's not going to be something that's going to affect things. And we'll show you what those log segments look like in a minute. All the business functions in the log segment, and there were thousands of them, so even though it's a short time sample, it's a relatively good sample in terms of number of occurrences of business function calls. they are all consistently twice as slow. We can tell that even from 20 or 30 seconds. So we seem to have a consistent slowdown, if you will, which impacts the 9.2 code line at some lower level. And what we did to determine all that is run Performance Workbench on the customer logs. Now, we won't go into a tutorial or how to use that. It is a tool, standalone executable that runs on a PC that processes JD Edwards debug logs from either the enterprise server or the JAS server and spits out, in essence, a profile. It spits out statistical data on what's in that log, timings, hierarchical data, and whatnot, okay? So we use the use of that tool as another takeaway here. And you look at the business functions section. This is from the AIX and from the Windows. We have the section that contains all of the business function calls. And you look at the count. So you've got counts that are in the thousands, okay? So it's not a minuscule sample size. It's not like we got 1 or 2 business functions or anything like that. And look at the averages. Every single one of these averages on AIX is twice as long for the same version of the code as what it takes on a PC class Windows box, okay? So, strange, okay? Same version of the software on Windows and an AIX, and it's running twice as fast on Windows, okay? And again, the reason they use Windows, it was the next best thing to try to see, you know, okay, is there something wrong with that server box that's, you know, somehow in that tools code, okay? So you drill down into the business functions. I know this is a little bit small maybe, but this is Performance Workbench output from the log files from both Windows and AIX. You look into one of the representative business functions, okay, and they all pretty much told the similar story. You see 9,000 calls and 5,000 calls and really nothing happening other than it tells you how many users, servers. There weren't any parallel business functions. There wasn't any database I/O. There's nothing in there that the radar of the debug logs can show you, okay? Also, you look at the database I/O, and you can see in both the Windows case and the AIX case, there is almost no database I/O, almost no SQL statements, and almost no time spent in the database. And again, the debug logs will tell you that because the debug logs report on, you know, all SQL statements that are run, you know, and you can calculate those timings. So again, once again, this confirms what the customer suspected. It confirms that you've heard numbers and profiling. The database I/O isn't a factor in this problem. Okay? The radar just isn't sensitive enough, it turns out, to capture the essence of whatever they're seeing on their AIX server. So Performance Workbench is fantastic for finding and triangulating application level problems. But in this case, what it did, the output is pointed us toward lower level problems which aren't captured in the logs, okay? Because we simply don't log things at a lower level than the tool's APIs. Okay, so what we need to do is profile the code at a lower level. How do we do that? How do we break open the black box and get to the next level that Performance Workbench doesn't get to us? Well, you have to consider the platform. Debug logs are platform independent. It doesn't matter, you know, about platform, but now that we want to get into the tools code, platform matters. So in this case, our platform is AIX. Well, if it were Linux, we'd use a tool called CallGrind. CallGrind will give you a profile of, it'll show you a sampling of either Java methods, C functions, and their hierarchy that get called within a certain piece of code. iSeries, those of you familiar with this, is a tool called PEX, Performance Explorer. It's, you know, quite easy to use, quite convenient, integrated into the operating system. So what do we have for AIX? Well, one tool we have is a tool called Trust. What Trust does is it processes system calls, dynamically loaded user level function calls, signals, etc. In other words, we want to see what's happening at the AIX system level, and Trust will show you the system calls. The command as it was run looks like this. Trust with a -DP, D indicates include timestamps, okay, in the output, and P means that the first argument you pass will be a process ID. So if you've got a UBE already running, you can run a trust minus DP on the process ID of that UBE. Look for the run batch process from an AIX console is how you would do it. And then you direct it into a trust.log, and then the rest of the output into dev null. Okay. Do is that, so that's your takeaway, this trust command. Now, what kind of output do you get? Well, you get output that looks like this. It'll show you with a timestamp, and it'll show you, it'll blow through every system call that's detected. Now, for 9133 and 9203, looked very different, right? You've got everything, just a bunch of get PIDs here, but a bunch of open, close, seek, etc. in 9203. But wait a minute. I pulled a fast one there on you, didn't I? You know, I just kind of would have glossed. So how do we get output from 9133? Where did that come from? Well, turns out the customer decided that it would be a good idea to use their QA environment, which was also a busy environment in 9203. They launched an 9133 enterprise server and launched a UBE. Again, they ran a test, and they saw that a UBE completed in 1 hour and 40 minutes, which was I don't know, 10 hours or so in 9203. That was the same as in PD before the tools build. So in other words, now instead of using the Windows box, they had a narrow window, no pun intended, that they could run a 9133 that they temporarily built in their QA. Okay, and use that environment to run 9133 and get these outputs. They saw the benefit of doing that. Again, this made the problem much easier to resolve. If they didn't, you know, that's something we could have done here. Okay, but again, one thing again I should have put on this baseline comparison, that's your takeaway here, that baseline comparison performance problems desperately need the baseline environment running whenever possible. So in other words, if I've got a before and after is slower than the before, boy, it helps if I still have the before running. Okay, if I have that in their environment, that way, if the problem is specific to something about the customer's configuration, I can find it. I might not find that here after I've done all the work trying to recreate and reproduce the problem here. Performance problems are like that. Some slight, subtle little issue, you know, can arise with, you know, network configuration with their disks, anything that we wouldn't have here. And then we'd miss that. But any event, the fact that they were able to create that baseline in their environment, again, made this a lot quicker to resolve. So again, looking at this output of 9203, again, that looks a lot different than 9201. You have a situation where the UBE is constantly trying to change directories and open files in 9203 with these apparently repetitive and recursive calls, so statx, open, close, get direct. Again, that would appear to be the difference between 9203 and 9133, and that is consuming CPU that we didn't see in 9133. Remember at the beginning, one of the observations the customer had was the fact the CPU was, you know, going like a banshee now where it didn't before. It seemed to be much higher in general. This looks like a low-level explanation of what's going on. Well, we know the source of the numbers, but we still don't know what they mean. Why is this happening? Okay, how do we tell what files and directories involved and how to interpret this data? We've got trust gives us the AIX system calls. We don't know where they come from. So we need another utility, okay, to give us more information, specifically to give us context. And that would be a utility on AIX called procstack. What that'll do for our running process is print the hex addresses and symbolic names for all the threads in the process. It'll take a snapshot, okay? And as we'll see, you can run repeated snapshots to show where all these calls occur. We need to see the system calls in context. What you do is you call this, again, another takeaway, procstack with a -F and the process ID in this case. That would be the run batch process ID of the UBE that's running at the time. Okay? You call with repetitive samples, okay, you go bang, bang, bang. You don't want to just get one. You get a bunch of samples of a bunch of call stacks, okay, to show what's going on. And here you can see, again, maybe that's a little bit small. I think in the next slide, we can zoom in on things a bit. We can see JDE call object is calling JDE get CWD, which happens to be get current working directory, which then calls the OS calls for get working directory, etc. And for those of you who may not be familiar, because it's a lower level of the code, call object is the mechanism by which all business functions are called. The way business functions get called in JD Edwards Enterprise 1 is that they're dynamically loaded from their respective DLL or shared library via this JDE call object API, okay? Every business function gets called that way from within the C code. Now, you have an issue here that shows up with every time a business function is called in that mechanism that calls every business function. So, needless to say, that is going to result in things slowing down because business functions is where the majority of the processing happens, you know, with our application code, okay? So, based on the combined output of Truss and ProcStack, two platform-specific utilities that I needed to go to find this, it's the business function execution that's taking the time. Now, the call object code line, the wrapper code used in every business function appears to be the issue in 9.2, like we said. So again, takeaway here, I call this the differential diagnosis. What code changes between the two releases could have caused the problem? And we had a very insightful analyst here that researched this, okay, saying I observed the behavior could be a side effect for the fix of a certain bug, which was checked in the 9.2 GA, that changed that call object API to track business functions, which in the course of their execution actually changed the current working directory. Some business functions do that, okay, as we'll see, certain business functions that actually call third-party products. Okay, so again, the ProcStack information helps that point of development toward, you know, zeroing in on that 9.2 issue. So again, meanwhile, back here, back at the ranch, meaning Denver, that we noticed that in that bug, a fix was added to change the working directory within business functions, and it was because we use products like Vertex and PC Miller, which are third-party APIs that actually change the working directory, you know, within the code stream, okay? So, for some reason, this seems to have had a performance impact on AIX that it didn't have on the other platforms, okay? The OS should optimize this process. Again, this is one of our tool developers speaking here in Denver. They're saying, you know, they should optimize this as the process level environment variable, but it's possible that AIX might have a different implementation. That is a lot more expensive. So what we did, we delivered a POC fix to not check the working directory for every single business function call in the call object mechanism. And so what happened? Well, turns out, and this is from the customer, again, they completed their yardstick UBE 9701 completed in about 2 hours, exactly as they'd seen before. Before the POC, it was 6.25 to 6.5 hours. Again, also in a custom UBE that generates a flat file in 5 minutes compared to 30 before the POC. Okay, and they even were savvy enough to go and run some truss while the new POC fixed UBE was running, and they confirmed no directory gets during the main portion of that UBE. Okay, so again, this problem was because of a fix that changes the working directory inside of the call object for every business function. Why did that affect, you know, only AIX? Well, we don't know yet, okay? We don't know. All we can tell you is that the different Unixes, of which the two main ones we support are Linux and AIX, also support HP, also support Sun OS, but even though they may be POSIX compliant, and even though that to the external user doing catting and grepping around, it looks just like any other Unix. Well, you crack open underneath the black box and the implementation is very different. And some code changes we put in that will work, on all these Unixes might not necessarily play as nicely as others. So for some reason, this change seems to have disproportionately impacted AIX. Okay? And one thing I did not put on the slides that figure, well, we backed out this change. What about customers that need it, and actually use those third-party products? Well, I think for now, there is going to be an Easter egg INI setting you can use to enable that code, okay, for the time until we find out more about, what is the cause of AIX behaving so badly, so to speak. So, again, we haven't made that prediction about the future yet. Another Yogi Berra quote, all right? So that was this particular customer issue. Now, the conclusions here is, again, the importance of a precise problem definition. Don't just say everything is slow across the board. You want to get out of the customer, this UBE used to run in this, now runs in this. Here's this other UBE that used to run in this, now in this. So we know not only that it's not just one specific UBE, but it appears to be at least many UBEs, if not all UBEs. We know that they were AIX and they made a tools only upgrade, etc. The more details about before and after, the better. Okay? Again, the exercise of carpet bombing with just a bunch of low-hanging fruit solutions that may or may not have anything to deal with the problem. Fine, you may hit the house that the bad guys are in, but you just might make a lot of holes in the ground for everybody to trip over. So I would recommend you don't engage in, throwing this fix and that fix that aren't based on direct cause and effect reasons for doing so. Keep that to a minimum. Again, we had a knowledgeable and competent customer, a customer that knew enough to understand that individual UBEs, some of them access the database a real lot, some of them don't. Some of them are very CPU bound, some of them are very IO bound. A customer that could run things like Truss and ProcSec for us, a customer that understood the importance of having that baseline environment available so that we can rerun things and so that we can diff the before and the after. I can't tell you how much less painful it is, when you have a customer who's knowledgeable, enabled, and understands these things. Understands that, yes, it is disruptive to their business, but so is having UBEs that are 5 or 8 times slower, okay? That's disruptive too. One way or another, you got to break eggs to make the proverbial omelet, and that's what happened here. Know when to break the rules, okay? In other words, I say you can't have a 30-second sample size for a several-hour UBE, and UBEs, start processing one section, and then it does something else in another section, and you won't capture that with just a truncated 30-second call. And when this call first came up, I go, no, look, what you're going to do is run this thing for several hours. You got to take a 10-minute sample, boom, direct the output into dev null. You got to take another 30-second sample, direct the output into dev null, And it says, okay, but they've got logs already out there. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at them. It doesn't hurt to take a look at them. And it turns out we didn't have to do any funky algorithms to capture, or any of these elaborate methods of capturing log samples, because what we had was actually enough in this case, okay? Knowing when to break the rules comes with doing a lot of this type of problem and understanding what you're doing, not just reading it off of a script. It's kind of like anything else. It's like golf or fly fishing. You learn, gee whiz. A fish that's moving a certain way is feeding, and he'll take your fly. A fish that's just sitting by itself in a hole isn't going to eat. It's one of those things you learn kind of with experience. Performance Workbench, again, it's a tool that, again, leverages the already available feature of generating debug logs and being able to take a large debug log and data reducing it into profiling data that can lead you places. Again, the importance of baseline comparison, we talked about that. Performance Workbench doesn't always give you what you need. You need platform-specific utilities. Sometimes it'll be the first time you've used this type of a utility, which means you've got to research it a little bit. But we've got this thing called the internet. Number one, we've got things called man pages when you're dealing with one of the Unix that show you how to use these tools. It turns out just 2 of them from the command line that aren't that difficult to run help us get to the answer. Finally, differential diagnosis. It's important to match these symptoms and be able to search on what was put into 9.2 that's similar to what we're seeing here. Okay? And that those things together all gave us the solution. Okay, second section for today is not a customer case, but one that I'll call our tracking tools. And by the way, okay, Access iNodes Extreme, does that semi-clever little moniker make more sense now? Does anybody know that a file pointer on Unix is called an inode, right? So Access Extreme, meaning all those change working directories. Oh, well. So just couldn't resist pointing that out. So tracking tools. So we're doing the platform-specific thing today. So we've done all this stuff on AIX. How about Oracle Linux? Okay. Well, Oracle Linux has a tool called OS Watcher. I don't know how many of you have heard about it. If you haven't, why? It's a tool that can be run as a daemon that reports on CPU, memory, network, and a whole host of other metrics, diagnostics, and whatnot. It's a daemon, which I believe runs by default, etcrc2.d, and then there's a directory S95 OS Watcher, I think, in the latest version. But the bottom line is it calls a script in that path. Okay, this should be by default in Oracle Linux, called startoswbb.sh. By default, it will collect data in the background in 30-second intervals. So it's not invasive to performance. It can be run in a live system, okay? It really doesn't show up much as a blip on, as far as glomming CPU. It saves by default the past 72 hours of data. That's configurable. And it saves them by default to an archive in that location in the var partition. And it saves them in 1-hour intervals in these zip files, okay? So the collection interval, whoops, there we go, gotta get the brakes fixed. The collection interval, retention period, and the compression tool you use, which is usually always gzip, can be configured in this OS Watcher script, okay? In the path indicated there, in the inet.d path. You can see there is the startossbb.sh. The first argument is the collection interval. The second is the retention period in hours, which is 72, so that's by default, okay? A good compromise toward collecting system data over a period of time, but not affecting the system adversely too much, are those values. Again, gzip means you're compressing it using gzip. The archives are in the directory where everything is stored. There are different subdirectories that store different classes of metrics according to the name of each directory. And here are the subdirectories. So in other words, the subdirectory OSWVMstat contains, I don't know, my proofreader has failed me, contains netstat data collections. No, it doesn't. OSWVMstat contains VMstat data collections. There is another one called netstat on there, okay, which is netstat. Plus, there's some for PS, some for top, etc. So what you have is a directory that has, for the previous 3 days, one file. Here are all the gzip files for every hour of data collected. You look closely, it says, here's the name of the machine, VMstat 16/7/15. So July 15th of 16, I believe that's 20 hours, meaning that would be 8 o'clock at night, the 8 o'clock hour, boom. And then what you see here is one that hasn't been zipped yet. That's the current .dat file that's being written to. Okay? So the real trick here is, the man behind the curtain here is at OSW. Really, all that is a set of scripts that gives you wrappers around basic Linux system utilities. VMstat, IOstat, top, PS, MPstat, traceroute. I think there are 2 or 3 others there. And then it does some awking, grepping, catting type of work and dumps it in a .dat file. okay? And then zips it. The zip files, you can open them with 7-zip, WinZip, either on Linux or on a PC. Each file contains that plain .dat file that can be extracted. Each DAT file contains 1 hour of data. You open up one of these DAT files, boom. You know, from the archive OWVMstat subdirectory, you see 1 hour of VMstat data, okay? And then what you can do is you can write your own scripts and filters to manipulate that data according to your needs, to create CSV or other delimited files that extract the data, and you can open them with Excel, which is what we do here when we're reporting an internal project. See, here is, again, a column delimited set of VMstat data that gives us information on CPU, memory, with a timestamp. And then with just a couple of easy steps, you can open that in Excel and boom, blast out graphs like that, okay, via data generated by OSW. So a whole lot of performance analysis problems, you know, at customer sites as well require tracking CPU and memory over time, and OSW provides a very good way of doing this that can be turned on by default and that can be running in the background, you know, that without really being noticed. So you may already have 3 days of data you never even knew about if your customer has a Linux system. When they can turn this on. There's very good, I didn't put a link, but very good web pages that show how to use this. I think it's fairly easy to use. It just involves manipulating some text files, and you have a whole lot, you know, of data. What I used to do is I used to write my own scripts, and you got to start them, you got to stop them, you know, and when I'm running a script that wants to monitor some running process, I'd always want to leave a little bit at the beginning and the end so you can contrast when the process is running for when it's not. Here you can do that already. You can just pick whatever time interval you need because you've got 72 hours of data, okay? You can just pick, you know, the time interval I need, and then you can just sort it out all with Excel. You can narrow it down and show just the window you want. The data is always there, always being collected, right? So again, performance first principles, I end every session I have with this. Where is the code or system spending its time or using its memory? 2 parts of the same coin. That's what all performance comes down to. That's what we've done here today. And that is performance thinking. Okay? Got a piece of code, takes too long, uses too much resources. Where are the resources actually being used? Where's the time being spent? Okay, so that's the end of the set portion of this session. Let's see, did we have any questions? I don't.
Yeah, Frank George has one on chat if you want to cover that and have me read it to you.
The IBM also affects iSeries, also affects iSeries 202 tools. Okay, so in other words, what Frank has just said is that this could be something in the IBM code line too, as well. If you look at, I don't know, can you see that chat that Frank said, but also affects IBM iSeries. Again, we don't happen to have had this problem reported by an IBM iSeries customer yet on 9.2, but again, looks like Frank has got one.
Yeah, so yeah. Chris, your presentation couldn't be more timely, and I'm so happy you went over this because it is an issue that because of the work you did with the AIX customer, we've any new indication that's come in since then on other platforms like Frank had on the iSeries as well. We tried a POC for them, and it also fixed some of their performance issues. They were seeing the exact same type of symptoms. So. Yeah, I'm really thrilled that you went over that particular topic because it couldn't be more timely, and it is a critical issue that we've seen pop up in the last month. So
it did seem to be timely. I always like it to be timely information where it can be useful, but at the same time show general, you know, techniques and whatnot. So hopefully we've hit on that here today, kids. It's something maybe a lot of you will be seeing.
Yep. Now we do have, I believe the fix was checked into the upcoming emergency checked into 9205 when it comes out. So very recommend that people take the latest tools release when it arrives.
Yeah.
Other than that, if they are stuck on a 920X release, then they might want to consider, and they are seeing some, dangerous performance issues. Like Chris mentioned, definitely give our support team a call so that they can work with you to maybe produce a POC if that's the route you can all agree upon. So.
Right. If UBEs, every one of them seems to be significantly slower after they've done 9.2, most particularly if they're an IBM, AAX, or apparently if they're iSeries, as well. Again, probably some of the same code line, but, maybe recompiled. It looks like you may have a customer that's affected by this. So.
All right. Any other questions? We still have a few more minutes. Get them posted, unmute your phone.
Well, this is Frank. I just want to say one thing, Clayton, that did help is we went live with the 9203 on this customer about a week and a half ago. The info center actually had the alert about this that Thursday night just before we went live on Friday evening.
Yeah.
So it did help because then we knew to watch that a little more closely, and it helped us explain what we were seeing when they ran their long-running jobs over the weekend. So that, I do appreciate getting that out there. On the other side, though, not trying to be critical, but it would have been nice if someone's putting a tracing function like that, one, to make sure there was a parameter to disable it by default, and to have that parameter in there, not just add the code. But I'm sure that's already been taken care of, and that won't happen again.
Right. And I think that someone just chatted out and it got answered, will fix in 9205 require the ini setting? And then, Ken Wong answered, well, the ini settings are bringing back the original way it worked, and that's correct. So if they need the ini setting, then they can turn on the offensive fix, if you will, because it doesn't seem to affect non-IBM platforms. Doesn't seem to, okay? And if they need that current working directory tracking feature for, Vertex, PC, Miller, anything else that is third party, there is an Easter egg to turn that on. I think probably in the, I haven't seen the latest version of the critical POC. The documentation may list that. Clayton, do you know, or Frank, do you guys know if it's the ini setting is listed?
No,
I haven't seen it either, so I'm not entirely sure.
I can. The bug itself says what they changed, two things. One is they put it in Server Manager so that you could know it was there.
Yeah.
And two, they changed the default so it was turned off. We, just to be on the safe side, we put the parameter manually into the 9203 JDI&I in the debug section to explicitly say that it was turned off, because I wasn't sure if the POC turned it off or not, and I didn't want to go test all that again.
The POC turns it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I didn't want to assume that, but yeah, it definitely made a difference. Like I said, for their weekend jobs, they noticed a little bit on their smaller jobs, but again, it was within less than single-digit percentages. So we thought, okay, it's just normal noise, but we expected to even help those a little bit. Like you said, it's business function related mainly. So the big ones that do it, like 3483 and others of that nature, are the ones that see the worst impact.
Yeah, because they call thousands and tens of thousands of functions in loops, and do their processing that way. And that's especially, jobs that have even lesser database IO2 and do mainly calculations will be, severely impacted as well if they're calling a lot of business functions, in those calculations.
But yes, thank you for this. This helps give a lot of the details beyond what was in the little, besides the bug.
This kind of gets you a peek into the sausage factory a little bit, and for, how we gave you that sausage that's out there in the POC right now. So, but yeah, that just shows you how we had to deduce that it is, in fact, low-level OS related. Sometimes that happens. I mean, we do still support, you know, a number of different operating systems, and everything doesn't work exactly the same under the covers, even between different Unixes. So, and you'll hit something that at a low level, some memory pointer issue just goes into hyperspace, you know, going and doing serial searches, you know, in some long forgotten corner of the code, you know, that then get multiplied up. It just kind of like snowflakes. One or two of them taste good in your tongue, but they all gang up on you and cars start running off the roof, you know. And this is one of those issues.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
Like I said, it was extremely timely, and I can't believe how ecstatic I am you went over that topic at this time. So thank you very much. Thank everybody for attending, and we'll have another session in just a couple of weeks. The next one will be on OneView financial statements. So we're going to give you an overview of how that got implemented in 9.2 and you know, what that project means to Enterprise One. And then the next session and then we'll have In Focus, which is always a good time. So look forward to everybody seeing you there. And we'll have a session right after that covers a new project called Script Builder. So lots of great things coming down the pipe from us. So if you have any questions, please send me an email if you're looking for details on In Focus on some of the sessions that we're having there. Also, let me know. And there is a partner day that's being scheduled for the 2 days after In Focus. Really critical that people try and attend that as well, because it's one of the last touch points we'll have with you until probably Collaborate for sure. You know, Open World is obviously coming, but most everybody just comes to In Focus, Collaborate, and the Partner Summit. So this is one of our last chances to get a lot of great information out for you, especially on some of the new features around cloud and UX that we're trying to push on. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Chris, again, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Bye.